So basement out. We should be finished. The plan is finished next Wednesday. It's a sharp. Start pizza. For how long? And you?
Thursday morning.
Why is this perfect?
Because you're going to finish Wednesday.
But I have. Yaakov, you going out of town too? Okay, good. All right, you'll hold down the board. Okay. Thank you. What? So I have to. That's right. Okay, the other Israel. We are on the Psalm based on out towards the bottom. We're talking about Aninus here, and what Aninus is the rights, what Aninus is the Rabbanon, and let's start from Vitani Kane in the Gemara. 4 lines down in the Gemara. Vitani Kane. We also know that there was no Aninus at night to Raisa. Ezu Aninus. What's Aninus? Mishas Misa in the time of death, Hachas Pur in the time of burial. Divrei Rebbe, go to Rebbe. Chachol Marim Koyam Kulo the entire day. Now it sounds like Rebbe's Mekel. I'm sorry. Yes, the Rebbe's Mekel Rabbanan are Machmir. Surprise will be on us, because Rebbe says until Tarek 4, Rabbanan says the rest of the day as well. Okay. Now, meantime, the Gemara takes in face value. Ashkechas. Next word should be Omar, not Chomar. Ashkechas Omar. So it comes out that you say Kalas v'Chamar. The periods are totally out of place, totally confusing, totally wrong. Kalas v'Chamar is out the Rebbe. There's a Kula and Chumra according to Rebbe. Kalas v'Chamar out the Rabbanon, and there's a Kula and Chumra according to Rabbanon. Kalas out the Rebbe. What's the Kula according to Rebbe? Meis v'nikmar b'shaito. If he dies and he's buried shortly thereafter in the same hour, al daiti the Rebbe yeno also l'sosa shobilvad. You only donate for that hour. Al daiti the Rabbanon also call you Kula according to Rabbanon. You're also the entire day. Kalas al the Rabbanon. Rabbanon on the other hand more makel than Rebbe. Meis v'nikbar lachal shloisha yomim. If the guy dies and it's only buried 3 days later, I'll die to the Rabbanon, call also Ayom, according to Rebbe, and according to Rabbanon, and this is only for the first day. I'll die to the Rebbe also at Shloisha Yomim, according to Rebbe, is also for the first 3 days in their entirety, because Rebbe goes until the Kvura. Says the Gemara, As Rabbi Abo b'Shem Rabbi Yochanan v'Rav Chuna, Tarvei and Armin, they both said, let's close up any kulas here. Mo the Rebbe l'chachamim. Rebbe concedes the chachamim. Now here, the next line seems to say she'eino oser loso b'yom bilvad, that even Rebbe is mekel until he doesn't continue past the first day. But we know we don't paskin that way. How do we paskin by Aninus? Aninus is from the time of death till the time of Kvura, right? So the Shari Teres Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Rabinowitz here changes the girsa because based on the Gemara in Zvachim in the Bavli, which says Moy, and it says it should be Moy to Rebbe l'chachamim she'aser kol hayom kulo, that even if they bury the guy in the middle of the day, it's still aser for the rest of the day. So Rabbanan always say it's an entire day. Rebbe at first he understood says it's all, if you bury him that day, it's only part of the day. We're closing that loophole. We're saying according to Rebbe, it's the entire first day. Rebbe goes even further, and he says it's from the time of death till the time of burial. Okay? So Rebbe's actually all machmir across the board. Now, based on this, and the rest of the Gemara makes perfect sense. Lieberman didn't understand the rest of the Gemara here, he says, but according to this tikkun, it makes perfect sense. Vitani Kane, ask her, is that true? Do we have a brisa like that? Then we learn, Rabbi Omer Teilucho she'en aninus halayla toira. Aninus at night is not the oraisa. Shari amru oinei toivel velcha pischul erev. And onein, during the day, right, the night of Pesach, you can toivel and eat, even though the mace is not yet buried. So how can you say it's the oinei for all 3 days? Says the Gemara, The echo's great tonight. Varei. I do it intentionally. It's really evil of me, but I do it intentionally. I enjoy hearing myself speak. So says the Gemara again. V'tani Kain Rebbe Omer Teil Chashen Nusay Torah Sharei Omer Onin Tevel V'Ru B'Tzchul Erev. So says the Gemara Varei Aninus Yom Osu Oso B'Torah. How can you say that he can do Tevel and go eat at night? The Aninus is the Doraisa. Right, and according to Rebbe, that's called Rabbanan, and Aninus Yom is the Raisa. So we assume according to Rabbanan, Aninus Yom is the Raisa. So we assume also the Aninus of the entire first day, 3 days, must be the Raisa, must be exempt from the Korban Pesach until the burial takes place. So says the Gemara, you know what? Rabbi Yisrael Boom B'Shem Chisda said, "Tipoter, you can explain according to Rabbi, B'Shenik B'Arim Dim Dumei Chama." It's about a case where the mace was buried Erev Pesach right before sunset. V'leisat Shma Min Klum, and there's no riot from here. In other words, the reason why Rabbi allows you the Yoyin to eat the Pesach that night is because the mace is buried that day. So he agrees with the Rabbanan that it continues for the entire day, but not beyond that if the mace is buried that day. So therefore, that night the guy can eat the Korban Pesach. But according to Rebbe, if the mace is not yet buried by the time Pesach night begins, he's forbidden to eat the Korban Pesach. Okay, so this Ein Aninus Alayla Torah is only after the mace is buried. Right then we say once he's buried before nightfall, so that Aninus doesn't affect that night. Ravo B'Shem Rabbi Elazar said, you should know, Ein Anina El Mace Bilvad. There's no Anina except for a dead person, not for any other purpose. The Chesed says, V'anu v'avlu p'sacher. It says that the gates of Yerushalayim will be empty and desolate, or mournful and desolate, because everybody will die. Hey, Reb Chia Barabot Adas, Reb Chia Barabot V'aksiv, that it say, V'onu adayokim, all the fishermen will be oinanim. V'avlu kol mashlichim b'yor chiko, and all the people who cast hooks in the sea, because they won't have fish. So we see there's aninus also, at least based on the etymology of the word, there's aninus also for fishermen. So says the Gemara, nevertheless, Amr Chanina, Kini Mastis, this is what he meant to say in the Brisa. Ein Anino Tuma Tmeya Elames Bilvad. The Anina of Tuma, Aninus of Tuma. Now it's not real Tuma. We discussed this yesterday. It means that the Aninus which bars me in Karbanos, and which Rabbanan required a tefillah at the end of before you eat Karbanos. That is only by a mace. The concept of aninus etymologically can apply to anybody who feels desolate and bereft. But the concept of aninus too much bars or feeding korbanos, that's only by aninus al mace. You should know that this is only onen. And although the rest of the shiva can eat korbanos, it only struck me when I did this sugya. And although can eat korbanos, it's only an onen. I mean, that might have been partial to all of you, but it's really, and it is partial, because obviously we always talk about onen, not about ovel. That's an important distinction to make. An ovel can eat korbanos. It's only an onen is forbidden to do so. Okay. Says the day when you hear that somebody died, Rachmana litzlan, in your family, and this is within the first 30 days. Because after the first 30 days, it's not real avelus anymore. So, but if you hear within the first 30 days, Kiyom Kfur, it's like the day of the burial. Likra, you have to do kriya. Uli'ibul, you have to mourn. Ulispira shiva, you count shiva from the day you hear. Ulispira shlosh, you count 30 days from the day you hear. For lecho b'kachim, and in terms of eating kachim, arenik luchuti atzamos, it's like people who gather bones. We're only usher, not even for the entire day, but only for the time when the bones are collected. For an hour or so. It says, whoa! V'likutei atzamos. Oh, there's a typo. I'm sorry, there's something missing here. The Leland brings down in the name of the Ksav Yad Leiden. He says here, should say, v'likutei atzamos toivel v'oichel b'kochim, which could once the bones are collected, he can toivel and eat kochim. Says the Gemara, asking a question. V'likutei atzamos toivel v'oichel b'kochim. Is it taka true that somebody who collects bones immediately can go and eat kochim? Rabbi Yosef Rabun said, now of course it's talking about now where you collected yourself and became Tamei Tumas Mates, right? It's talking about where somebody collected bones of a deceased relative of yours, and therefore, right. It's additional kura. In other words, the bones have been scattered or they're relocated. Right, you move the mace. The truth is, if it happens during the day, then one second. If it happened during the day, then I guess he wants to say it's also the entire day. I guess he talked to the Gemara. I didn't perceive this when I was preparing. Really, what we're saying is that Likutei Atzamas cannot eat that day. In other words, the entire day when you gather the bones, you taka osir. It's only nightfall, and when it's nightfall, and that the Gemara is saying a kula that if the bones were collected at night and then buried at night, you're allowed to eat korbanos immediately thereafter. In other words, you need like a harev shemesh. It's not because of tumah issues. It's because it's like an oinen. Just like an oinen is also the entire day, so to a malaki tatsamos is also that entire day. But once night falls, he's mutter to go eat kochim. Pais go to the mikveh, again, not because of tumah, but because of coming out of the state of aninus, right? But what say the likut tatsamos occurred at night? That's what Gemara is saying. If they actually gathered the bones at night, then you don't have to wait at all. Because it's only till the end of a day that you have to wait. If they gather the bones at night, then you don't have to wait at all after that. And that's what's going on. The toivel b'oicha b'kochim immediately is going to somebody who's malaki that's almost at night. Okay, so that's what it's saying again. Let's go do that again. Immediately, don't you have to wait till the end of the day? Rabbi Yitzchak Moshe Chizah said, no, to explain, Shenik Bar Mishachasheh would talk about a guy who was buried after dark, and since he was buried after dark, so therefore, there's no, in other words, rebury, right? The Likut Atzamos is after the Chashecha, and that's why immediately you can go to the mikveh, because you don't have to wait till daybreak. It's during the day, you have to wait till nightfall, but at night you don't have to wait till daybreak.
Doesn't mean that if he was buried during the day, you could eat. Even Likutei Atzamos could eat the balance of the day. Kachim.
That's not a bad shot. Korban Pnei Moshe don't say that, but it's not bad. On a scale of 1 to 10, I give it 7 or 8. It's not bad.
Sounds like a
okay. I like it. Okay, I'll go into learn like that. But that works for me. So says after the kfur, in other words, after the Likut Atzamos, he's not mutter immediately, but immediately when it becomes nightfall, it becomes mutter. That's okay. It works. This is a quote. Zev from a brisa. Zev is at toivlin v'oichlin as it should be called b'kochim ba'erev. You can eat toivlin, eat kochim at night. Now this is talking about a guy who moved the bones. This is talking about both the guy moved the bones and the day kfura, either or. So somebody is koiver and somebody who's marking at someone's kochim that night. Kfura ocheles b'kochim. I don't understand. If you koiver somebody that night, you can eat kochim. It says in our Mishnah, that by Pesach or Meko, that by Oinen or Pesach or Mekel that he can eat the night after. But by its mashma, by Kodshim, we don't have such a kula. That which he said, Ein Aninus Laila, is only by Pesach. He made a special dispensation, but not by other karbanos. So what do you mean Kfuro Chels B'Kodshim that night? Rabbi Yisrael Tarteon B'Shmir. No, this price it says that you can eat at night. This is talking about where you heard, when you heard that the bones of your relative were gathered, or when you heard that your relative was buried. Shama shemeis lo meis me'esmo. If you heard that somebody died in your family yesterday, toivo ba'echo b'kodshim. You can eat kodshim. To shamash lislaktu at samos me'esmo, meaning before the day ended, right? Masmo means it's night, right? And that day, immediately the day before, so that they had buried some of your family, or you heard that Nislakidu at Samas Masmo, they gathered the bones of some of your family, Toivel Baruch B'Kodshim. That evening, immediately after the day is over, you can Toivel and eat Kodshim. Kani, we learned. Hamavir Armi Mokel Mokel. This is a very interesting halacha, which they have to keep today as well. Hamavir Armi Mokel Mokel. When you take a coffin from one place to another place, it's not considered to be bone gathering. Why? It's all in the coffin. Says the Gemara, remember that name. That's only in a stone coffin where it doesn't decompose into the ground. Why is that? Because the oren itself can decompose into the ground, right? Remember that name as well. So even a wooden coffin contains the contents. But because you carried in a sack, in a bundle, so obviously you gathered up all the dirt from all around and put it into a bundle to transport it. That's called likudat samos. In that case, you have all the parameters of avelus. Rabbi Zira said, likudat samos kishmuon. It's not even when you take them in a sack. It's literally when you gather up the bones. I guess the sack was buried in the sack. I take that back. But the Amar, because it means he was buried in the sack in Tachrichen. You're right, and you take the Tachrichen. Rabbi Zira said, goes in for it says, Ligat Samas Kishmur. Ligat Samas Pshuta Kamashmo, you gather bones one by one. The Tani Kane, and we learned this, that's in fact what we're talking about. Ligat Samos, Milakit Etzem Ishis Achel Boser. What's Ligat Samos? When you gather bone by bone after the flesh has rotted away. Tani, we learned, Ain't Shmuel Ligat Samos. If you, not like we learned previously, if you hear that bones are gathered in your family, you don't have to do even temporary avelus. Rabbi Chagai said, that's all. If you heard the next day, even though it's within the 30 days of likudat samos, you don't have to conduct yourself in parameters of avelus. If you hear on the self same day, likudat samos, then in that case it's considered that there is a concept of having been shomea about likudat samos, and you have to conduct yourself in manners of avelus, at least for that day. Shiur likudat samos. Is there a shiur? In other words, how many bones you collect? Tana good interesting name here. Tana nikumche kumi Rabbi Zira ain't shiur likudat samos. There's no shiur. Whatever you collect, it's already enough. Rabbi Mona Harele the Rabbi Hillel the Kipra. There was like this meiser Mona Paskin to Rabbi Hillel the Kipra likrov lisabel to be koran be misabel ke Rabbi Acha, meaning that when they transported an aron of Evan, that it's not considered likudat samos. Well, that's what he meant to say, right? So when you transport of Evan, it's not likudat samos. Only you transport an aron of 8 is a likudat samos. Okay, but then it's even a mashu. V'shaloli tamos k'Rabbi Yossi. But you're not metame until you have Rabbi Yossi. Now it's not clear what he meant by Rabbi Yossi. In fact, the Gillian Ephraim wants to say about a different Rabbi Yossi, not the one which appeared in our Gemara. But Rabbi Yossi in our Gemara said that that it's not going to be likud atzamos even if you take it in a coffin of wood until you take it in a sack. So I guess the pashtus says that you're not again. It's not clear what it has to do with matters of tumah. But and I don't have a good shot for it. But the way the Pnei Moshe wants to say it, the Pnei Moshe says that you're not metame for them if you are a kohen unless you have an aron which contains the entire contents of the body. Because the halacha is that a kohen is metame for his father only if his father is complete. If the father is the corpse is not complete, not the corpse, the skeleton is not complete, then now he's not metame for his father. So therefore, you want to say that the parameters of being sholem are still your father still considered to be sholem as long as he was buried in a coffin of wood. You don't just like Rabbi Yossi said, it's not likud atzamos if you're buried in a coffin of wood. So too, it's not considered to be lacking anything if you're buried in a coffin of wood. But if you're buried in tachrichim, that's entirely possible that things fall apart, and therefore you're not considered to be sholem, and therefore the kohen can't be metame. That's how the Pnei Moshe explains it. Okay?
Don't you need
That's being metame to masoel. Right. Yeah, this is whether kohen can be metame for the corpse. Okay, so that even if you have rominian and robinian, it still has to be intact. So intact he defines as within a wooden coffin, that suffices. Okay? Says Gemara, Tani, we learned in the Brisa, likud atzamos. They really have problems being yoytu shofar in this space matter because of the echo.
Well, the deal was with iron.
They say the first year they were there, the first year they were here in the 50s, so Rabbi Rogoff was here and running the show, so they kept on Rosh Hashanah trying each place until they finally came to some place on the side here, where over there, yeah. But there's still an echo. You can never abolish the echo here.
When you have a full base metric sheet.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So when it's empty, like now, we're just. All right. Yeah, no, that's right. It has less of an effect, but the certainly is, slight echo. Okay. Says the Gemara, all your background comments get on tonight. Says the Gemara further. Tani, likud atzamos eino mer lov kinim. V'nei, when you gather bones, so you don't make dirges and lamentations. Ve'eino mima lov lo birkas avelim. Birkas avelim was a bracha. They used to say for avelim in shul. We only say amokim minachim, but they used to have brachas which they used to say, which are no longer said. And ve'eino mim v'lo tanchum yamim. You don't say amokim minachim, which of course is still around. Eloi birkas avelim, what are birkas avelim? Mashen omrim beitzak netzes, which I said we no longer say. Eloi tanchumi avelim, mashen omrim b'shura, what they say when they make a line coming back from the cemetery, which is hamokum yinachim. But we're Jews. Whenever we have an occasion, we say things. Poor verter. Mind dvarim. What are the words? Rabbanan amri, the Kesari amri, kilusin. You say praises about the guy whose bones are moving. Okay? Matamun de Beis Shammai. Now this is coming back to our Mishnah again. Beis Shammai says a guy who's mizgayer in their Pesach can make a Pesach right away. What's the logic Beis Shammai? It says atem ushvichem. When they came back to Milchama Moav, they were tamei meis. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, or I forget who said this, atem ushvichem, you and your captives have to become tor. Matem lo nitmeisem ad shenichnatztem lebris. Jews don't become tamei until they enter the covenant, meaning goyim are not become tamei. Av shvichem, so to the captives, lo nitma ad shenichnatztem lebris. So even if the goy became tamei meis yesterday, and today became Jewish, nevertheless he's not Tamei Mace, right? Because whatever Tumah happened to him before he became Jewish doesn't count. So therefore, you can make a korban Pesach right away. Matan Beis Hillel. How does Beis Hillel learn? Atem, the exact opposite. Atem Mashiachim, you are captives. Ma'atem Tunim Azoy B'Shlishi Shvi, just like you're Tamei Mace, and after we have Mei Chatos, Paraduma water, sprinkled on you on the third and seventh day. Av Shvichem, the Goyim, who are captives. Tunim Azoy Shlishi Shvi, they had to have Paraduma water, sprinkled them on the third and seventh day. Says Maria, this is not the right. So Yerushalmi means it's not the right. That which Beis Hillel said is that a parish min orlik, a parish min kever, that somebody who gets because Megayer and Erev Pesach can make Korban Pesach. It's not the right. Rather, and what's the proof it's not the right? So Dom Rabbi Chia Bar Yitzim Kilu Bar Miyam Shem Rav said Moedi Beis Hillel Shem Amar V'Zorkas Adam B'Shuurtza. But if you did the Zrika Saddam and the Korban Pesach on a ger who's Megayer Bo Bayoim, then he can't. Then it is a valid Korban Pesach. So therefore, it must be that Rabbi Hillel says the Rabbanan. And in fact, it's brought down, and as we learned in the Bavli, that the reason why it's that way is because next year, he might think when he does get really tamei, shortly before Pesach, he might think that that's not an impediment to making Korban Pesach, so therefore this year we're machmir on him as well. Okay? Nazir shnitma b'safik rishus hayachid. A Nazir became tamei in a safik rishus hayachid. Now, if you remember your halachas of Moshe Sinai, a safik tumah rishus hayachid we're machmir on. So this Nazir has a safik tumah, it looks bad for him. Veinu b'Pesach. Now these words are probably not part of the Gemara; they were put in later on. We're not talking about Korban Pesach now. We're talking about the Nazir in and of himself. Now vis-a-vis Pesach. Rabbi Yosha Rabbi Amar. It's interesting. I never noticed this before. Rabbi Yosha is called Rabbi like Rabbi Chia, because Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yosha were both the authors of the Brises, the last of the Tanoim, so to speak. So therefore, what?
In the Bible, it's called shiur.
Yeah. The Oshir with an aleph, but that's not the Chiddush. Is the Rabbah afterwards. It's called Rabbi Yeshua the Great, like Rabbi Chia the Great. Okay, Rabbi Yeshua Rabbah Amar Nazir Megalech says even though it's only Safek Tuma, the Nazir has to shave and start his Zirus over again. Rabbi Yechon Amar Eina Nazir Megalech, even though we're Machmer in the Safek Tuma, the Nazir doesn't have to start over again. Tzina Tamon, because we learned over there. What tumah? Now this statement is really backwards, but you'll get the idea. Any tumah of a mace, shanozir megalech, which a nazir has to shave and start over again, is the same type of tumah that chayovim aleh, that you're chayiv on it. Al bias mikdash. If you're going to Beis Hamikdash that way, chayiv by the carbon. Nu on a suffix you be chayiv a carbon? No. So therefore, since you can't be chayiv if you enter the Beis Hamikdash after having undergone a safek tumah, even though it's a safek which we're machmir on, so therefore the nazir doesn't have to shave on that result, on that basis to start over again, right? Haydainu safek. What safek are you megaleachan? What's the safek which nazir is megaleachan? Rabbi Yochanan Rosha the Pirko, the one which appears at the beginning of the parak, not the beginning of our parak, the beginning of the 8th parak of Nazir. That's where the sugi is. And it's like about where somebody comes to two Nazirim and says, one of you became Tamei, I don't know which one. So there's a definite tumah. We don't know which one applies to. And that's why tumah, even Rabbi Yochanan agrees that they have to start over again. Here we're talking about cases where the tumah itself was in doubt. What?
Is it like a
It's worse, because we know there's definite tumah here. Well, kavua is like that too. Yeah, that's kavua. It's like ikba yisur as opposed to this case where it's not ikba yisur. That's what he meant to say. Yeah, that's right.
What about 2 months to
Funny you should bring it up. The Mefarshim speak about 2 months at home here, but I want to avoid it. Okay? No, it's not 2 months at home. I don't know if they read down this context, but this is not 2 months. This 2 months Rishus Yachid is worse than 2 months at home, because 2 months at home and Safek were machmir in Meiko. 2 months Rishus Yachid is Safek were machmir, so it's worse than 2 months at home. Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi Amar Hain Dacha. Rabbi Yeshua Rabbi consistently says This case which you're just talking about, right? Safek Tumah Shusa Yochid, you are the Nazir has to be Megalech. Yochid Shenitma. Now Yochid became Tameh, it should be Bisafek, without the Vav. Yochid became Tameh Bisafek Shusa Yochid. Same idea, but Pesach. Of course, normally it doesn't matter for Yochid, who's not a Nazir, but let's say about on Pesach for current Pesach. Rabbi Yeshua, the great Amar, Yitchel Pesach Sheni, he has to be pushed off the Pesach Sheni, again, consistent with our assumption that Safek Tumah we regard as a Badai Tumah, so he gets pushed off the Pesach Sheni. Rabbi Yechon Amar, it's a Safek, so I can't let him get away with not making Pesach Rishon based on a Safek, rather than Meshalchin so Derech Choika, throw him out of Yerushalayim. So he should have the additional P'tur of Derech Choika. Tzibur Shnima B'Safek Rishus HaYochid BePesach. Now you have all two Tzibur. You're right, I did. Sorry. Similarly, Rabbi Yochanan says, you're telling me B'Tumas Beis HaPras, with the same idea of Safek Tumah Rishus HaYochid. Go through a field in which a grave isn't plowed under, you don't know where it is. So there, Mishal, so there, you make him go far away. Tzibur Shima B'Safek Rishus HaYochid Pesach. Now, Tzibur, which came Tameh, so Tumah Utra B'Tzibur. But what happens if it's not definite Tumah, but a Safek Tumah? So can you say that they can do Pesach Rishon? Rabbi Yochanan Amar Yasu B'Sveikon. Yochanan says they can make with Safek, which means, as the Korban explains, the people are still Torah Vadai. They can't do B'Tumah because the only time Tahorin can do B'Tumah is if the Rova Tzibur Vadai Tmeim, but that's not the case here. Either people are Tamei or Safek Tamei. So Yasu B'Sveikon means the people are Tahar, do it B'Tara, and the people are Tamei, do it B'Tumah. In Safek Tumah, not Vadei Tumah. That's Rabbi Yochanan learns it. And Rabbi Yeshua Rabbah Amar Yasu B'Tumah. Rabbi Yeshua Rabbah says they do it B'Tumah because he regards Safek Tumah as being Vadei Tumah if it's Safek Tumah Shus HaYochid. Says more no. Af Rabbi Yeshua Moedesh Yasu B'Sveikon. That's not true. Even Rabbi Yeshua agreed, said here they have to be Machmir, and the Torim have to do it with Safek B'Tara, and the Safek Tmeim do it in a state of Safek Tumah, which means they have to try and remain as Torah as they possibly can. Rabbi Yeshua just wanted to make it l'chumra, it's the stress that even those people who are Safek Tumah should do Pesach Rishon. Rabbi Yechon Rabbi Banai said, Yisrael Arel, now not a Goy who's an Arel, a Yisrael is an Arel, Mazin Olav. You can do so now, this is not talking about Pesach. So about can he become Tamei from Tumas Meis? Can you sprinkle Paraduma water on him? Not for Pesach, Stamazoi. What? The thing is, the Gemara requires a limud for this. So he says it came with Sinu. No, yeah, the Gemara requires. But we might say in our law. Remember the language they still use called Parish Mina Orla Parish Mina Kever. So I might say as long as it has an Orla, it's like Tomei Tumas Meis. Maybe in the Rabbanan only, but therefore it doesn't no good to have Hazor. So
it's an Orel who, for medical reasons, couldn't have.
Yeah, or he's a Baal Tshuva. Either or. So now, you saw Mazi Love came on Sana Shakibla Avasena by Midbar Hazoya Rayl. When I'm the Korban goes to the Cheshbon. He says when Am Yisrael entered the Eretz Yisrael after the Midbar, actually, so they had the Bris Milah on the 11th day of Nisan, and before that, the day before, they had Azoya. They were sprinkled on them for Paraduma water to be Matayr them to mace. So we see that there's precedent. You can do Paraduma water before the Bris Milah. Rav Chisda said, that's why the opinion that they had the Bris Milah on the 11th day of Nisan. Beram, however, according to the opinion which showed they had the Bris Milah on the 10th day of Nisan, Lo Kibla Azoya Raylim. So they were Makabel Azoh only afterwards, after they got the Bris Milah. Now bear in mind that's because Azoya is on the 3rd and 7th day. So therefore this 3rd day would have been the 3rd day was on the 3rd day was on the 10th, and the 7th day was on the 14th, and then there would be Torah to do Korban Pesach. Rabbi Eliezer Shem Chanina said, based on the I'm Rabbi Avun, sorry, he says, listen, but the bottom line is the 7-day count begins before the 3rd day. And when does that 7-day count begin? In this case, it began the 7th day of Nisan, right? It began, in this case, when they were entered Eretz Yisrael, when they were still Arelim. So if you could begin to count when the guys are still RL, so you can also do the Azoya when the guy is still in RL. Because they're all components of the same procedure. So from here you see that any component of the procedure being Tomei from Tumas Beis, you can do when a guy is still in RL. Rabbi Eliezer Shechin said, Ma'isa v'koyin orel she'iza. So Ma'isa v'koyin orel who sprinkled paraduma water on other people. So then they found that he was uncircumcised. They said, but the evidence Azoya was good. So Gemara tries to say, Kavachomer, if he can do the sprinkling of paraduma, he certainly can receive it. The Tanakh we learned also, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Ispratil, so Yerushalmi Pesachim Yerushalayim. There were soldiers out who used to watch the doors of Yerushalayim, who it seems were not circumcised. They were Hellenized, I guess. And then Erev Pesach Tovlu, V'achlu Pischei Erev Pesach. They went to the mikveh and they ate their pesachim that night. And we said that they must have, since they were soldiers, they must have been Meimez. So when did they have their when they had the paraduma water sprinkled on them? Must be while they were still Arelim, before they underwent the Mila procedure. Somebody was Tamei or distant from Yerushalayim. The law says Rishon didn't make Pesach Rishon. Yatza Sheni should make Pesach Sheni. Shagag, if he unintentionally did not make Pesach Rishon, Onanas is compelled. Law says Rishon. Yatza Sheni does Pesach Sheni as well. He can't lomanem Tamei derechok. If that's the case, that everybody can do Pesach Sheni. So why say Dafka a person's Tamei or far away? Sheilu Ptur min HaKoris. If you were drunk, that's why you missed Pesach Rishon, so you're Chayav Koris. You might get kapara by making Pesach Sheni, but right now you're Chayav Koris. These guys, the Tamei of Derech Nechoka, they're exempt from Koris. They had a legitimate excuse. Sheilu Ptur min HaKoris, Veilu Chayav Koris, and the other ones are Chayav Koris. Tamei Nefesh. I only know somebody who's Tamei Mace gets pushed on the Pesach Sheni. Anusim, somebody who's compelled not to make Pesach Rishon Shogin, or unintentionally not make Pesach Rishon Minayin, how do you know he makes Pesach Sheni? Amalomar Ish Reba. It says Ish twice and then includes more. I could do Rabbi Akiva. It says when that works, Akiva says whenever it says Ish, whenever there's a multiple lashon, it's Reba and includes something else. However, what about Rabbi Shmuel? The Rabbi Shmuel, whenever it says multiple lashon Torah like Ish, it's just Dibra Torah Klosh Bnei Adam. The Torah was speaking like we do, so we can't learn from that. So how do we know that somebody's not a Tmei Nefesh? Can also mean Korban Pesach Sheni. Tani Rabbi Shmuel lo Tmei Nefesh Karei Derech Rechoik. I'll tell you why. Because the Tmei Nefesh who's allowed to make Pesach Sheni is not similar to somebody who's far away. Lo Derech Rechoik, nor somebody far away Karei Tmei Nefesh, like somebody's Tmei Nefesh. Hatzad Shavashim. What is the common denominator between the two of them? Shelo Asar Rishon, they didn't make Pesach Rishon. Yes, it's a Sheni. They can make Pesach Sheni. So Afani Arba Anusim. So I'd say anybody who didn't make Pesach Rishon, even Boines or B'Shogeg, Shloso Sarishon didn't make Rishon Yasu Sheni. Mezim Minayin. How do we know that even somebody deliberately missed Pesach Rishon? Aroshe. How do I know he can make Pesach Sheni? Rabbi Zia Ish. Extra vav and hey there. The Rabbis is amazing to include the person who's intentionally missed Pesach Rishon. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. Anan Tnina and Shagag Onanas. Doesn't say in our Mishnah Shreige Groines. Where did you get mazed from? Says one time Rabbi Chia Shagag Ohazed. Hey, when the doubt changed the Mishnah, the Bavli did the same thing. You know, he also put in the Mishnah in the Bavli Mishnah mazed as well. Says the Gemara, I'm Rabbi Yisrael. My Snisa Amakeh. Chooses the Mishnah indicates it itself. It says the Mishnah said that the Tamei Derech are exempt from Koris, the other people are Chayiv in Koris. Which one is Torah Chayiv in Koris? If they're in this or shrinking not Chayiv in Koris, it must be Lo Tmei Tamei Lenefesh. Can it be anything else? It must be somebody whose intention became Tamei to a base. So he gets kares, but he can make Pesach Sheni anyway. And the other Tamei Nefesh. I know the person who's Tamei Mesa Pesach Rishon can make Pesach Sheni. Tamei Ziva Ezav. The Tamei Tzaras Amitzayla. I don't know if they make Pesach Sheni. Because Talmud Leimal, because the pasuk says it's a mistake. It shouldn't be Tamei Mesa. It should say Ki Yeh Tamei. If he's Tamei, regardless of how he's Tamei. Riba that includes any type of tumah. If that's the case, so Matam Lord Tamei Nefesh. Why does it say Tamei Nefesh? If any tummy can make Pesach Sheni, a nida, a lettuce, whatever she is, or he is, why is it only to say Tamei Nefesh? To tell you this Losha. Ela ish Tamei Nefesh nidcha Pesach Sheni. That if it's a man, a solitary individual, Tamei Nefesh is put on Pesach Sheni. Vein tzibur Tamei Nefesh nidcha Pesach Sheni. But if the tzibur Tamei Nefesh, and then I put on the Pesach Sheni, then I say Tumahutra Mitzibur. Okay, so to that reason, it says Tamei Nefesh. I say stress that only by Tamei Nefesh do I say that it's a yachid, but anybody else, even a tzibur, is pushed on the Pesach Sheni, can't make Pesach Rishon. Tumahutra Mitzibur is only by Tumas Meis, not by any other type of tumah. A new thing, Tumas Avodah Zarah. Somebody was an idolator, so the Rabbanan is tummy for him having been an idolator, having come into contact with Avodah Zarah. So the also Sukkah Tumas Ziva Tumah Tamei Tzaras, he has status vis-a-vis Korban Pesach like a Zover Mitzayra. Says the Gemara, what about like this? Nitan Yisrael even knows Pesach Chiyar. What about Bezos Hashem Yisborach? You get permission to build the Arafat gives us permission to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash between. Somebody's going to give us permission, right? Between.
It says doesn't say you have to give permission. It says just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, okay, I'm just saying, like the Gemara scenario. So you got permission to build between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. She Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. Arafat is more likely to give you than Clinton. They got permission to rebuild between Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. So can they make Pesach Sheni that year? What do we say? So it says when Yachid oitz a Pesach Sheni and Tzibur it's in Pesach Sheni. Tanakama says no, he can't. We can't because Yachid is pushed on the Pesach Sheni, but not the whole Tzibur. We never find a case when the entire Tzibur is pushed on Pesach Sheni. So if we all can do Pesach Rishon, we can't do Pesach Sheni as well. Rabbi Omer Tzibur oitz a Pesach Sheni. We find a Tzibur, Tzibur can make Pesach Sheni. Shekei Matzina bechizkiyah, we found by King Chizkiyah. Shasa Pesach Sheni. His entire nation made Pesach Sheni. Although they see that's what it says. Kimar Bisa me Ephraim Rabbis me Ephraim Nasher. Most of the people of Ephraim and Nasher were all Tamei, so they were all Tamei B'Tumas Avodah Zarah. Not Tamei Meis, Tumas Avodah Zarah. Because Tamei Meis, Tumutra B'Tzibur. But since they're all Tamei Tumas Avodah Zarah, they all made Pesach Sheni. So the same thing is true about when the Beis HaMikdash is rebuilt in Yerushalmi between Pesach. They made a leap year when the rain Nisan began. You're not allowed to do that. The Gemara says, Bavli brings us down several times also this Maisa. So he made a leap year when Nisan already began. He made a second Nisan, or second Nisan, I think, or he made that Nisan into an Adar, whatever. But the bottom line is you're not allowed to do that. So that's what, but even after he did that, it didn't work. They were still Tomei. So therefore you have to actually have everybody go for Pesach Sheni. Okay? Now, Istani Tani, those who learn that Ma'arin is a short of Ibnei Atuma. You can make a leap year if people are Tomei and they have to get Torah before Pesach. Istani Tani, those who say, now the truth is, obviously it only takes 7 days to become Torah. Why you need to make an extra leap month? So it's about where a Nasi or a Melech is on their deathbed. And you know that they're going to die soon, but not soon enough. And therefore everybody's going to be Tomei in Erev Pesach. So therefore you just are Ma'aber the Shana to push up Pesach for another month until after he kicks the proverbial bucket. So says the Gemara, Istani Tani, those who said, Ein Rabbi Yisrael Minei can't do it because of Tumah. Manda Mar's next word is a typo, according to Korban. He says, Ma'abrim es Hashanah Mipnei Tumah. You can make a leap year because of Tumah. It says by Chizkiah it was a no-no for him to make a leap year. So what does he do with that puzzle? It says Marsh Ibras Nissan. Like I told you, we made a second Nissan, and that we can't do. You can only make a second Adar. The only way you can make a second month is Adar. And that case, where it's like the case of Rasim Razati, it says later in history, in times of Ezra, they found the skull of Arnon, the original owner of the site of the Beis HaMikdash, they found it on the Mizbeach. And they all became Tomei, and they had to push off something back then. I don't remember what it is. But in any event, here too, the reason why they pushed up Pesach, according to this Mandomer, is not because of Tumas Avodah Zarah. It's because they found Tumah in the Beis HaMikdash. So he argues and he says that Tumas Avodah Zarah is not a reason doesn't allow you to push everybody off to Pesach Sheni, or to push up Pesach. Push everybody. They say Dafka is Tumas Mason. He doesn't. It says Tumas Avodah Zarah is not a factor. Alright, in any event, it says, Steve, I guess since they found it under the Mizbeach, so somehow they had to make a new Mizbeach or something like that, I don't know. So in any event, that's how why they had to push it off for such a long time. Steve, it says, they began the first day of Nisan to be Mekadesh themselves. And on the 8th day of the month, they were successful. Now, if you're talking about that they were Mekadesh themselves, not for Tumas Meis, but for Avodah Zarah, why does it take so long to remove Avodah Zarah? Right, we're going back and forth. If the Tumas Tarchizka was Tumas Meis, like the case where they found the skull under the Korban's back, or is it Tumas Avodah Zarah? So it says it took 8 days to take care of it. So if you say it's Tumas Meis, so I understand you need 8 days for Azoya. I mean 7 days, and on the 8th day you're Torah. But if it's Tumas Avodah Zarah, 1 day should be enough, right? Why need 8 days to take care of it? Says the Gemara, Amar Avidi, Mibnei Tzalmei Kastim, because of the Babylonian idols. Sheyuchakukim b'Sheshar. Now they were engraved with Sheshar. Now what that means is very interesting. Bnei Moshe says they are very deeply engraved in the walls, and therefore need a lot of time to rub them out. So Chizkiah is involved in that for a long time. The Korban Eda says it was written in invisible ink. It says Sheshar was invisible ink. It never took them a long time to use the solution to find the invisible ink, and then find out what Avodah Zarah to eradicate. Okay, but see if it says very strong condemnation of Chizkiah. He prepared his entire heart to quest for God, the Lord of his for the Lord, the God of the Lord of his fathers. But then it says here after that, v'lo b'taras hakodesh, but now with complete purity of holiness. That's the rest of the pasuk. Very strange pasuk. So it gives him praise, but then condemns it. My lo b'taras hakodesh. What does it mean? Lo b'taras hakodesh. It doesn't say those words here. I'm making them up. But that's what I was about to explain. Rabbi Simon, Rabbi Zadi, Rishua, Rabbi Khamenei, Chaim, I once said, I feel also kama b'taras hakodesh. No, why did it say v'lo b'taras hakodesh? Because there's no end for taras hakodesh. Taras hakodesh! To say with the utmost pureness and holiness, even Chizkiah, he can't do such a thing. It's beyond human capacity. As much as you try, you can't succeed it. The other side, I feel Chizkiah did a lot of good stuff. But Lo Yotzi de Taras HaKodesh, he never came close to being Yotzi Taras HaKodesh, meaning he wasn't trying to be Metaher. He wasn't trying to make Chulin al Taras HaKodesh. So concept of keeping Tara and keeping Kodshim Tahar, but there's also concept of keeping Chulin al Taras HaKodesh. And that Chizkiah didn't attempt to do, and he was not successful in that regard. Shishvar Masa Chizkiah is all parenthetical. Shishvar Masa Chizkiah Melech Yehuda, 6 things Chizkiah did. Al Shloisha V'Shodulo, on 3 things they Chazal agreed with him. Al Shloisha V'Shodulo, 3 they didn't. Ve'u Shloisha V'Shodulo, we had this many times, right? The 3 they considered to concede him. Kites Nachash Choshis, he ground up the bronze snake which was made by Moshe Rabbeinu, which had become an object of worship. Vodulo, the copper snake. Vodulo, they conceived them. He dragged his father Achaz, one of the great evildoers of all time, on his bones on a bed of ropes through the streets of Yerushalmi. Vodulo, they gave me Ashkoyach for that. Gonez Tavish Ravusi put away the book of cures, literally a table of cures. Vodulo, they conceived him in that. Veishlo dulo. What are the ones that didn't agree with him? Kitze tosa heichel. He sent the doors of the heichel as a bribe to one of the non-Jewish kings to leave him alone. They didn't like that. V'lo dulo. They didn't agree with that. Sasas motzamei megichon. He closed the opening to the Gichon fountain. Right, there's a famous Chizkiyahu's tunnel. Right, in order to bring the Gichon waters into Yerushalayim, and he closed up the source outside Yerushalayim. Chazal didn't like that because, of course, the pilgrims couldn't drink it. V'lo dulo. Hoya tzibur chetzim zavim. Iber Nisan. He made Nisan and leap month in Nisan, leap year in Nisan. V'lo dulo. He didn't see on that either. Okay, back to Tumatara. Hoya tzibur chetzim zavim chetzim tmein. They're half Zavin, half Tmei Mesach. The real Nebuchadnezzar, right? There are no Torim. Half Zavin, half Tmei. Zavin Nasim Eitzel Tmeim, Ketmeim Eitzel Tahorim. The Zavin vis-a-vis the Tmeim are like Tmeim vis-a-vis Tahorim. Right? Because the Tmeim now become the main body. Because Tuma Utra B'tzibur. But for the Ziva, it's not Utra B'tzibur. So they're like Tmeim vis-a-vis Tahorim. And therefore, the next word says, Einon, it's a typo. It should be Tmeim Oisim. The Tmeim make Pesach Rishon. The Zavin Nidche Pesach Sheni. They're pushed on the Rishon Pesach Sheni. Ravuna Amar ain't Tashlumin LePesach Habo B'Tuma. Ravuna says, what? No. You only have Pesach Sheni. Pesach Rishon was done B'Tahara. Pesach Rishon was done B'Tuma. I don't think we had this in the Bavli. Maybe we did, but I don't remember. If Pesach Rishon comes B'Tuma, there's no Pesach Sheni that year. So therefore, there's no such thing in this case. Hoya Tzibur Rumatorim, whether Tzibur was a majority Tor, Umiuta Tzmei minority were Tamei, but Mesu Min HaTorim Ben Shchita Uzrika. Between Shchita and Zrika, some of the Torim died. Okay? So then, Achar Miyat Ma'alech, who do you follow? Achar Shchita, do you go after the Shchita, or Achar Zrika, do you follow the Zrika? In Temar Achar Shchita, and Mosim Betuma. They can't do Betuma because they were Tar at time of Shchita. In Temar Achar Zrika, you go after Zrika, Osim Betuma, they can do it Betuma because at the time of Zrika, they're ready Tami. Well, vice versa. Hayat Tiburuma Tmei, they're mostly Tmei. Umyutan Torim and minority Tor, Umeisminat Tmeim ben Shchita Zrika, and some of the Tmeim died between Shchita Zrika. Achar Miyat Malach, who do you follow? Achar Shchita, Achar Zrika. Do you go after the Shchita or after Zrika? Item Achar Shchita. If you're going to say you follow the Shchita, so it's in Metuma, so at the Shchita majority of Tmeim. Item Achar Zrika ain't no Metuma. You say you follow the Zrika, that can't do Metuma because, of course, at the time of Zrika, some of the Tmeim had already died. What's far from Yerushalayim? From beyond Modi'in. And that distance on all sides, Yerushalayim, Div Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lezer beyond the threshold of the Azara. Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi said, so as a dot on the hay in Rechoka, on the last hay, it doesn't mean you have to be really far from Yerushalayim. If you're just outside the threshold of the Azara, you're already considered to be Derech Rechoka. Well, as long as there's no chazan, we'll just go a little bit further. Rabbi Simon Amar Ispalgon Rabbi Chia Rabbo Bar Kapora. Rabbi Simon said that Rabbi Chia the great Bar Kapora argued. What's really distant from Yerushalayim? Kadeshi Avovi Yochal. A person who's so far that he can't come during the entire time from midday till the end of the eating period, which is night, chatzos of the halayla, according to Rabbi Lezer ben Azariah, the next morning, according to Rabbi Akiva. So somebody is so far away that he can't get there. It's much closer, obviously. By the time he can't get there during the time of Zrika, meaning the entire afternoon he can't get there, not including the Achila time. Now, here the Commander says that somebody is so far away that he can't get there by midnight. It's not really midnight. Why? Because after nightfall, he can't move more than 2,000 amos because of Tchum. So by nightfall, he has to be within 2,000 amos of Yerushalayim. Rabbi Zira said, you know what? We'll stop here. I did prepare till next Mishnah, but looks like they're about to. Does he say brachos now? So we'll stop.